Keitumetse, do you want to just give us a brief background of who you are, why agriculture and agritech is something you're passionate about, and where you're calling in from as well?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Keitumetse Lekaba. I'm currently the MD of I'm an Entrepreneur. And it's good to see some of the delegates here. Matthew Piper, I've worked with him through my journey of working with entrepreneurs. And also to mention, I am also a BYM alumni from 2005. I remember the conference quite well that we had in Midrand in Johannesburg somewhere. I am based in Johannesburg. I'm currently in Cape Town though. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with everybody, as people that know me, entrepreneurship is what I do, and the sustainability of entrepreneurs is my day bread and what keeps me awake at night. So I'm looking forward to these conversations and welcome everyone to the discussions.
Great, thank you, Keitumetse. That's a great introduction, and we got an alumna from 2005. So really good to have someone who's chiming back into BYM. I think that's something we continuously seeing, is that people who have been delegates are always passionate about coming back, and actually sometimes themselves leave inspired and more inspired than they did before. And that's something that Sarah mentioned in her sort of feedback to us about being a BYM delegate, is that you feel like your batteries are charged when you at a BYM conference, even if it is remote. And dialing in from Cape Town is can't be a bad thing. It can only be a good thing.
Except for the wind. I left Johannesburg very, very hot. I landed this morning in different temperatures here, but all good. Cape Town for you.
Great. And then we have Matthew Piper. I love the shirt, Matthew. You can see the top of Africa there. And great to see, there we go. And great to see that you and Keitumetse know each other. And just to give us a bit of history about yourself and how the agri-tech and agriculture space draws your interest and passion.
Cool, good to see everybody. And Keitu, good to see you as well. It's been a while. Yeah, I think I'm a BYM from 2016 or 2017, somewhere around there. So also part of the network. So good to see it's back in action. Cool, yeah. So I'm one of the co-founders of Kula. We're an agri-tech startup founded in 2016. And I pretty much run the product development. So I'm a design kind of guy. I'm the CPO at Kula. So I work with the design team and the developers to build our products. And that's what I'm sort of really passionate about, is on the design side and building the tech. I kind of got into the industry by chance. I wasn't from an agricultural background. I actually studied, I was on my kind of journey to becoming a CA, which I then veered off that path. I was lucky to meet one of our co-founders on a sort of an entrepreneurial trip. And I think that's, the great thing about these kind of networking events. You never know who you will meet. You could actually meet your next co-founder who you go into business with. And I met one of my co-founders by the name of Lekaba. Yeah, she was in the agricultural space. And I think we kind of had a synergy of skills, me coming from more of a design and tech background. And I was just really blown away by the opportunity and the facts around agriculture on the continent. The fact that we have 60% of the world's arable land, yet we still face so many challenges. So I kind of saw a role that I could play in really looking at this opportunity and solving some of the challenges that we have in the industry.
Great, so that's good to hear. So we have two people who've really been on the ground and working in the agri space. So if the delegates want to, you guys can start to post any questions in the Q&A as we begin the conversation. And I think just to kick off, we'll start with you, Keitumetse. Is one of the main questions that have been circulating is the sort of widespread effects of the pandemic in the supply and demand of prices of agricultural products across particularly Africa, and how that's also from the supply and demand and price perspective, how that's also sort of generated an offshoot, which is the evolution of Agritech. So how has Agritech evolved as a consequence of realizing that the supply chain is not as robust as we thought it was when faced with pandemics of this nature?
I think in the Agritech space, and what the pandemic did for us is almost force us to want to or to need to move into Agritech and using technologies more in source food, and using technologies more in farming and in securing food in across Africa. And I think what happened during the pandemic is that we realized that the manual work and the manual labor of farming, and because we didn't have as much demand, our supply went off. A lot of farmers that we were working with across South Africa specifically, which is where I operate mostly, a lot of our farmers had produce and products that went off because they didn't know what to do with it. And they didn't have means or ways to secure the food for themselves, and means and ways to take the food elsewhere to other people. So I think what the pandemic did for us is almost force farmers to start looking at Agritech not as a want anymore, or not as a luxury anymore, but as a need to move into it.
Great, definitely from a needs basis. I see, Thato, you've joined us as well, but your video is off. Are you there, Thato? Okay, there we go. Okay, so Thato, sorry, we're just going to move back and introduce you as well. So Thato as well is someone who's also involved in the agri space. And thanks for joining us, Thato. Introduction from your end, thanks.
Thanks. Can you hear me clearly? Awesome. Thank you so much. I was struggling with my video, but I sorted that out. I'm Thato Moagi. I'm a farmer. I started farming about 7 years ago in Limpopo. I'm currently running 2 projects at the moment, one in Limpopo, and I started a project in the Western Cape. It's been about 2 years now. I am involved obviously in agriculture, but my passion really lies in, developing this industry, because, being a young woman, being someone of color, being, in a male dominated industry, you really have to think of really good ways you can solve issues. And these ways are not just unique for me. I think a lot of emerging farmers face similar issues. So my line of work has been really around development, and where I started is developing my farmers' experiential learning platform, bringing on students who needed experience in agriculture that don't have, historical understanding of land and farming, opening that platform to them. And that experience, that's when I then became a Nuffield Scholar. I got an international farming scholarship, and that really afforded me the opportunity to travel the world and see agriculture. And that's where I think I was the most exposed to Agritech, because going to different countries, be it in Europe or China, there's different levels of farming, the way they're using technology to solve issues that are not just unique to the international space, but also developing countries. So I think that's when, when I came back home, I thought, I had the opportunity to start opening this up, and we've been developing, our training platform more into the Agritech space, bringing technology and innovations to these young emerging farmers who face challenges, be it climate change, effects of drought, be it, accessing the market space, understanding how to tailor make your business into a product. So that's what I'm passionate about. I'm advocate for developing young people, getting that voice out. So I'm very glad to be part of this platform. I'm great that I'm getting to meet Matthew Piper. I've read a lot about the work that you're doing with your Cooler app. It's so inspirational. And so I'm very excited to be part of this platform.
Great. So another person who's really at the coalface of agriculture and education in the space as well. So good to have you, Thato, and it looks like we're going to have a really good discussion with the three of you. So Keitumetse did say that we sort of looking at the pandemic and post the pandemic, realizing that there's a need for us to look at solutions and how we bring tech into the agricultural space, given the effects of the pandemic. Matthew, any insight from you? You've developed an app. If you could tell us a little bit more about that, but then also speak to how the pandemic has fast-tracked the evolution in the agricultural space.
Cool. Yeah, so it's been quite an interesting and difficult journey. When we started out, I think we've been in the space for now about 4 or 5 years, and we've learned a lot of lessons. I think initially when we started out, we were solving sort of one specific problem. We actually spent some time on the ground in Hammanskraal area, and we didn't want to really build a solution kind of from our, just coming up with the idea ourselves. We wanted to go on the ground, understand what the pain points are of farmers on the ground, and build for that. We didn't want to come up with our own ideas. So initially, when we worked with these farmers, we realized they were sort of, the biggest pain point was really around how do they actually market their product, especially with emerging farmers. And we found that there were only really 2 avenues for these farmers to market their products. It was either informal markets, where we've now seen during the pandemic, if you were reliant on informal markets, your kind of business has gone under because that kind of sales channel wasn't available during the pandemic. And secondly, it was the Johannesburg or municipal fresh produce market, where it's quite difficult for small and emerging farmers to really sell their product consistently, because number one, you're actually selling this perishable product on consignment. So there's no guarantee that your product will actually sell. And because it's a perishable product, if it sells a day or 2 days later, you actually get a worse off price on your product. And I think one thing that we've also found is that you can't really build relationships with your buyers. It's kind of very ad hoc. You're not building relationships. And because you don't have these relationships, you can't really grow your farm. You can't get into programs. You can't get into contracts. You can't get financed well because of that. So we really wanted to kind of create a new channel for these farmers to access the market. And really build a relationship with buyers, and not become another middleman where it's not transparent. So we wanted to really build this transparent marketplace. We are just a platform for you to meet and grow your relationships with these buyers, and hopefully, do it in a much more efficient and cheaper manner than through the formal channel. So that was the initial sort of thinking around one of our platforms. But over the years, we've actually developed quite a number of solutions. So one thing we saw was that, you can't really solve problems in isolation, especially when we have, also a social mission behind the company, where we actually want to empower and grow farmers. We couldn't just treat one sort of problem in isolation. And we quickly realized that not every farmer can actually access the formal markets that we were trying to enter into. There's a lot of complexities around health and safety, food safety, which is it's important. If we've seen the issues around listeriosis and various issues, that if a farmer is not following like proper health and safety certification, and we sell that product on our marketplace, it's actually quite a huge risk for us. So we sort of started putting together a couple of more controls around who can actually access the marketplace. Do we need a local GAP or global GAP certification for farmers to access our marketplace? So that's something we explored, but we didn't want to be exclusionary to everyone else that we've been working with over time. So what we started developing was we call it the cooler ecosystem. So we've actually got 3 key pillars to our business at the moment. Number 1 is the marketplace, which I've just described. We've also got an inputs app. So we've actually partnered with some of the biggest suppliers. AECI has actually come on board as a minority shareholder. AECI Plant Health, they were formerly known as Newlandis. Those in the agri space probably know them. They're quite a big agri distributor. And we've got a whole bunch, Thato Seeds, Bayer. We've got a bunch of sort of these big international suppliers on our platform where we actually distribute products in a much more efficient way. And we help to get farmers the technical support they need to be able to grow. So we kind of try to take them on a journey from both the production side through some of the partnerships that we have and our inputs app. And we try to push them through and build a pipeline into our produce marketplace. And now the third leg of the business, which is kind of an undercover part of the business, is what we call our funded dashboard. So because through our ecosystem approach, we've kind of developed quite a lot of data on farmers and buyers and who's performing well in the market and stuff like that, which has never really been digitized before. It's never been on a platform. No one's been able to use that kind of data. So we also now bring in a lot of corporate partners, funding partners, banks, who come into the ecosystem and can actually support farmers in the way that they need support. For example, if they need some supply chain finance to fulfill on a program, we can bring in some of the partners and support them on that. We've got a couple of partners where we do some certification training and help them to get certified. So we try to really, bring these funders into our ecosystem and support the farmers where they need support. So those are the 3 kind of pillars of our business. And they kind of all work together in the ecosystem to try and grow and support the farmers.
Well, that's great. And can definitely see how your platform has possibly helped people during the pandemic with access to finance and access to larger corporates as well. And then being able to have bridge finance if they haven't been able to generate that type of income.